It is HBR, and I'm Dave Lawrence. Today we are welcoming a guy who is bringing his band to the islands for several dates, sure to please fans of the Grateful Dead or jam band scene. Steve Kimock and friends are playing Thursday and Friday at the Blue Note, March 23rd and 24th, 6:30 and 9 each night. Saturday at the Honoka'a People's Theater. And Steve has played with everyone from Keith and Donna, Gene Gaucho to In the Heart of Gold Band, to Bay Area psychedelic rocker Zero, Bobby Weir's Kingfish, Merle Saunders in the Rainforest Band. It's like a who's who of people connected to the Dead or who have been in the Dead. Phil Lesh and friends to the other ones, Rhythm Devils, rounding out the band with the drummers, Bobby Weir's Rat Dog. This is just some of his many associations. We don't have time to get into all of them. We'll be here until he and I are both gray and gone. But we're welcoming him for yet another association, and that is our guest on HPR's All Things Considered. Aloha and mahalo, Steve.
Hi, Dave.
Thanks
for having me.
How you doing, brother? Good to have you.
I'm good.
Great to have you on board, and thank you for taking some time for us today.
My pleasure.
And before we get into this incredible history that you've got, any previous Hawaii experiences?
Many, yes. I've kind of lost track, actually, which is a good thing.
Yeah, familiarity is a good thing.
Yeah, sort of melted into the continuum of Hawaii experience for me, as opposed to going, oh yeah, this is my second time.
So lots of times, all over the state. Any particular memories stick out?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, probably more than probably more than we have time for there too. We've had. Or I've had in various configurations, lots of kind of rural or semi-rural on the beach, out in some cane field kind of thing, kind of gigs that are just like super sweet. That that are at the normal rock venue kind of events, and those are always fun. All species shows, that kind of thing.
Dig it. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's good you have.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I definitely do know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're coming back, a bunch of gigs I know people are going to be stoked about. Now, who's coming with you in this band? Paint a little picture of who's coming and what we can expect out of these shows.
I can tell you who's coming, and I can tell you what I expect. We'll see. I'll probably be close enough. My old buddy Bobby Vega on Fender bass. And me and Bobby have been at it for decades, so that's a great chemistry. And Jeff Clementi on the keyboards, who does a lot of the the later era, Grateful Dead. He did the Rat Dog thing and Dead and Company, and plays a lot of guys. And he and I. We've been working together long enough and have enough, similar musical interests that there's, really just wonderful musical chemistry there. We really push each other and catch each other, and that's a lot of fun. Wally Ingram on the drums, ex David Lindley and so forth. Another fantastically talented guy that I have enormous chemistry with. So I think what I'm expecting is, the benefit of that chemistry, which is, that's kind of the name of the game for me, the ensemble interactions, the spontaneous composition of things. So.
And then how about the songs? Because you with a background like yours, I can imagine you're drawing from all kinds of sources. How's the set list come together? 'Cause I'm sure it changes every night anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean it changes all the time, but there's obviously a couple of Dead or Garcia related things in there all the time. A bunch of my own music, and I mean, you never know where the material is going to come from. Really, it could be an Ali Akbar Khan tune, it could be a Wayne Shorter tune, it could be a Beatles tune. It's like whatever we feel like playing that day. Although actually, with Wally in the band, Uh, we do kind of lean on the Ernest Rangland and reggae side of things, maybe more than with some other stuff. So I'm hoping we get some of that done too.
And then the Last Danger of Frost album, is that still your most recent?
Not for long, because we get. I just kind of kicked the follow up to that out of the house. There's nothing left I can do on it, and it's off to be mixed and mastered. And no, I do not have a working title.
And so that's still the most recent one. So I imagine.
No, Last Danger of Frost is still the most recent, but it's about to be. It's about to be the one before the most recent.
So we may hear some new music plus some songs from the Last Danger.
That is correct.
I like that. So it was a good mix, a very unpredictable show, which certainly maintains that Grateful Dead reference point. And anybody who's had any familiarity with your work or taking a look at your background, clearly the Dead has factored big into it. But dialing in on perhaps your earliest musical memories or how, as a young boy, you were influenced to get into music, and in particular the guitar, if you can share some of that story with us.
Right. The very earliest stuff was family and folk music. Not immediate family, but I had aunts and uncles and cousins who played, and so maybe I was 12 or 13, and already like hearing some of that stuff and being aware that people could sit around and play the guitar, play the harp, play the piano, and sing songs, and then the Beatles came along and it was like, oh yeah, that's cool. So those early influences for somebody my age, I'm 61. If you grew up in that time, you would have had that American folk and British invasion thing as part of your formative listening if you were at all exposed to music. So.
And how about gravitating to the guitar?
Oh, my mom says, Stevie, you should play an instrument. And I was like, yeah, right. I was basically, I was just a kid. I didn't know. I was like, why can't I just set stuff on fire? That kind of thing. She says, the neighbor across the street from Grandma's just got a new violin. Why don't you go check out the violin? So it was a big deal. So I crossed the street from my grandma's house. I mean, that's how little I was. And I went to the door, and the guy's name was Paycheck, something I forget. And the door was open, the screen door was closed, and I'm looking down the hall into what I recall, as a Fender amplifier, like up on a chair, facing right at me. And the guy's got the cord from the telephone and the cord from the electric violin, kind of stretched in between each other, and he's on the phone. Listen to this new electric violin that I just got. And he put the bow on his thing and dragged it across that, whatever it was, Firelux reverb or something like that, and just blew my head off. And, I was just so shocked by the volume and just how strident it sounded. I, ran crying back to my grandma's house, and I was like, I think I'll play the guitar, because Aunt Dottie had the gut string guitar, and that sounded nice. So, here I am, all these years later, kind of doing the same thing to everybody. It's like, Carol.
Oh, it's a great thing, and give your mom a lot of credit for that. That's a wonderful thing that she did.
She's smart.
And all those fans, I'm sure, would love to give her some credit on that. How about the Dead? Now, that's a band that, as we've said, you're highly associated with, and clearly thinking about some of the ways you described your earliest influences, they would factor into the folk rock scene of the 60s. When were you first exposed to them?
Gee, let me think. Wow, I was probably first exposed to the Grateful Dead, socially, maybe early in high school or something like that, friends would play it, or people would be at, party and put it on, and I didn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me. The people didn't make any sense to me. The fucking drugs didn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense. I was listening to Black Sabbath, stuff like that. So it wasn't until, a little after the Europe 72 record came out, and somebody played that for me, and I heard Garcia live, and I was just astounded, by the creativity and the expression and the melodicism and chromaticism of his playing. It was so elevated compared to the more rock or heavy rock stuff that I thought was cool. So I kind of immediately embraced that as an ideal, both in approach to music and in the sound of the instrument, because I thought he had a very pure sound, back then with the Strat. I thought that was just, one of the best guitar sounds ever. So, I was probably doing some study on the matter by the time I was in my, by the time I was 20, 21, something like that. I was never a deadhead, exactly.
Well, it's two bands with very distinctive guitarists. Certainly Tony Iommi, nobody can take away the incredible pioneering aspect of what he brought the world, especially the way that metal and alternative went years later. I mean, his
with the down tuning and the whole thing. Yeah, he pretty much wrote the book. You can listen to those old Black Sabbath records, and the guitar production still stands up today, and the drums sound ridiculous.
Oh, those bands. Those records wrote the book. There was nothing like them, and everybody else. It was that was like laying the foundations of hard rock. And really, when you go back to them today, a lot of what has come after them really is either highly derivative or it's very clear the pioneer. I mean, I was a huge Sabbath fan. Saw them not as many times as the Dead.
You get the idea, yeah.
Oh yeah, I have all the records. I've interviewed them all.
It's easy for me to include them, right alongside, whatever Roy Buchanan, fine, Tabashish Bhattacharya, fine, Black Sabbath, fine.
Did you see them back when you were in high school?
I did not. Man.
Okay.
I just did. I grew up in kind of a backwater, There wasn't a lot of shows. Every show that I did see, of a national or international act back then, just completely blew me away.
When did you first see the Dead?
Oh boy, when did I first see the Dead? Closing of Winterland. I was living in California, and my friend said, "Hey, let's go see the Grateful Dead at Winterland." And I was like, "Okay, that'll be fun." And so I went, and that was kind of flabbergasting too, particularly in terms of production values. I had never heard sound that good in a big room. It was just beautiful, intimate, playing and sound. There was nothing bashing or forced or labored or weird about it. It was just like giant headphones, compared to, like going and seeing the Ramones or something like that. It's like, here's your music.
So that was about the era.
That was the first time.
And so I'm reading into it. That was about the era, like mid to late '70s, when the Ramones were starting to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that because I saw the Ramones in the same venue. I saw the Ramones at I think with the Tubes or something weird like that.
Right.
And that was a great show too, but that was a rough show.
Yeah, that dates it. Well, that's a good way to pinpoint things on the chronology of your life. And how did you first, because you've had so many of these gigs with different cats in the band, it looks like the first Dead-related gig was Keith and Donna Jean. Accurate?
Keith and Donna.
How'd you get that to happen? What led you to that?
I did absolutely nothing. The phone rang one day, and the female voice says, "Is this Steve Kimock?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Steve Kimock, the guitar player?" I'm like, "Yeah." She says, "This is Donnie Godra." And I knew I knew who she was. I was like, "No, it's not. Who is this?" Oh, like, don't mess with me. But it was. And she said, "Come down and come down and play with me, Keith." And I was like, "Okay." So off I went, to the great consternation of the jazz players that I was hanging out with at the time, trying to learn to play jazz. They were like, "Oh man, don't go hang out with those guys. They're a bunch of no playing, mother farmers, and they do weird dope, and don't go there." And so I went there, and then that whole crew was like, "You're hanging out with who? Don't hang out with those guys." There was a weird, there was this weird friction between, what I perceived as the jazz scene thing at the time and the Dead, which is truly weird. And Jeff Clementi has the same story of that, kind of initial friction. Like there was kind of one camp and the other. And I mean, one of the guys that I was hanging with, back in the day, trying to learn, was Bill Vitt, who's a fabulous jazz drummer. And I didn't know he played in the Garcia band. He played with the Meters and all, these different people, and I had no idea. And I just thought it was, that's kind of weird after the fact that these guys all had these gigs, doing this stuff where it's all interrelated.
Right.
The bass player, great jazz bass player since long since passed away, Joe Carroll. He played with David Grisman and stuff. It was still this like, oh, those guys kind of thing. And at the same time, everybody was like 1 degree separated. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
No, it's a very good point. And the scenes are a lot more, in music industry in general is a lot more merged in some cases than fans would probably expect. When did you first get the opportunity to meet Jerry Garcia, who I have read considered you to be a guitar player he really appreciated?
Let's see. Well, while I was playing with Keith and Donna, some of that playing we did at the old Grateful Dead studio, which is a club front in
San Rafael, right?
Club front, they called it, in a really nasty part of town. On some level, like the Shakedown Street cover, that's like kind of it, Yeah, you didn't want to be stuck out there at night. Anyway, I met him there, and we sat and played talked about stuff and guitars. That was cool. And he says, "Well, play me something, like, what are you into?" And so I start playing the jazz chords, right? And he makes this look and he rolls the eyes and he goes, "Elevator music," He thought fusion was like, the Chinese food of music, an hour later you're hungry again kind of thing. Which was, but just another example of that little split between those camps. Because a lot of his compositional influences, from my perspective, appear to be directly from Tin Pan Alley. The way he wrote some of those intros and the chord changes and everything is, it was very sophisticated stuff. And we were interested in the same, in the same batch of materials and methods and approaches. But there was this, there's that little split there between the straight up jazz thing and the idea that you could improvise in a rock band without having to be beholden to those elements of style. Like Leonard Feather or somebody who would say, well, you have to have a swung eighth note, and you have to presume a seventh chord, and, it's got to be a jazz tune and a jazz, played with a jazz sound by a jazz musician. Those guys were not, coming out of the 50s, the old school jazz guys, they were not into the idea of having a bunch of jazz guys play a Beatles tune with a fuzz bass. They were like, no, that's not it,
Right.
We don't care. We don't care who you are. Don't do that,
Right.
So, at this point, I honestly think we've moved beyond that, and there's a whole bunch of, modern small band improvisation, that to me is every bit as compelling as the best of the 50s jazz stuff.
Well, that's very. Those are all keen observations for sure. And having started with the late Keith Gaucho as your first dead man, you meet Jerry. Had you ever gotten to meet Brent Midland, who has also passed away?
Oh yeah, I met him. We never forged much of a relationship. We just kind of learned in different circles and busy doing our things. But we had, communicated, hey, we should do something, let's play. Unfortunately, he passed away, so that was not to be. Weir, on the other hand, I've been playing with since I was probably in my middle 20s or something like that. I think I met him pretty young.
How did you hook up with Bobby Weir?
I was offered an audition for Kingfish. It was kind of a one-off show, or maybe one or two shows, something like that. And I think Robbie Hodnott was the guitar player before, and he sadly wound up with some health and substance issues, and I guess kind of fell out. And somebody said, "Well, try this dude," And I had to go to New York to do the gig. I went all the way to New York to SIR, from California to try out kind of thing, And we played, and we were like, oh, well, this is going to work. So, off to the races. So we've been sparring ever since.
Yeah, and he's still
enjoying it. There's some more of that coming up. He's doing the campfire thing, the cowboy routine, which is a lot of fun. I like working with that guy, and he's always so much good music around it.
You're very lucky. You've had a lot of experience with him, and as you said, still more to come. How much time overall, considering your guitar prowess and maybe some of the people who are familiar with your sound, how much time did you get to spend with Jerry? And are there any enduring memories of either learning from him or hanging out with him that you treasure, hold on to, or are particularly endearing to you?
Oh, do we have time for a story?
Yes, we do.
Okay. This is, to start off, let me just say I didn't spend an awful lot of time with the guy. It was abundantly clear to me that he was overpeopled and did not need one more person knocking on his door because, even at that point, if somebody was calling him up, it was like, hey, can you do something for me? I'll do a little brown nosing and you'll fix something for me, that kind of thing, It's like, it just bugged me, the extent to which he was just surrounded by, a nut magnet, basically.
Right.
Anyway, so I didn't hassle him. We still got together, but I didn't hassle him. Somewhere back in the 80s, there was this, it was like Soviet American Walk for Peace thing where a whole bunch of people, musicians and artists and political types and protesters and activists, apparently they walked cross country. I wasn't there, but they came all the way across country from New York to San Francisco. The thing ended up in San Francisco in Golden Gate Park at the band shell. And there was going to be this big gig with all the local musicians and, a bunch of these cats from Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. And the house band, basically the core band, was Zero, of all things. John Cipollino was still alive at the time, and Norton Buffalo was there, and just everybody. Anyway, Garcia is supposed to play. So we're up there playing some stuff, some Zero song or something. And out of nowhere, man, the entire place, there's people hanging from the trees, literally. The entire place goes nuts with applause, and I'm looking around going, what the hell happened? And I look to the back of the band shell, where there these steps coming down, and Garcia has just appeared with Parrish. And I forget which one was holding the guitar, but they're walking down the stairs with the guitar. And they're going really slow, as an abundance of caution for the instrument, and maybe because of the buzz, but they're going really slow. And every step they take, man, the people are applauding louder and louder as they get to the stage. So finally makes it to the stage, down this long flight of stairs, on the opposite side of the stage from me, and walks all the way across the stage with his guitar in his hand, Jerry Garcia, right? And my amp is on the very end of the line, in the back line on the opposite side of the stage. His amp, which is a Fender Twin up on a case, is right next to mine. So he walks all the way over to me, starts to plug in his guitar, and the stage manager comes up and says, "Oh, no, man, one more song before Gary," right? After this giant, laborious entrance, right? And so Jerry's supposed to leave the stage. And his idea of leaving the stage is to walk the 3 steps from his amp to the other side of my amp and stand there with his guitar, right? So I'll have to play this one more tune. I think it was Little Wing, and I did my best to burn it down. And then Jerry's supposed to come up. And so he walks past me and plug his amp in again. And he looks at me with this little smile and he says, hey man, don't make me look bad, okay? And after all of that, the little voice and the humility and kind of self-effacing nature of the thing completely broke the ice for me, because I was scared to death. I was like, oh, Jesus, after all of that, but it was great. Yeah, I think for the most part, all those guys way nicer than they need to be, just to anybody, and particularly to me. And in that case with Jerry, he just knew what to say to make it okay, for the music. He barely had to say anything, it's just one little funny, quip, and it's like, bam, the whole thing was set right. So.
It's a lot of great memory there, and a great personal interaction with him. The two of you on stage together, and then what did you guys play? It
was neat. But he was generally a good dude, and we took our guitar geekdom thing, because he was definitely a geek about all the music stuff, and that was our little cone of silence. When we did get together, we could talk shop, and it would be enough to keep people away. It's like, I'll leave them alone to talk and shop. So
that's nice. That's a great memory. And when you look at all these cats and you've gotten to end up working with Phil and in the other ones as well. I guess I saw you with the other ones. You must have been, did you do the tour in 2000 where you guys ended up in Boston at the Fleet Center? You had Ziggy Marley opening?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember that. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was
It was fun.
what's your, do you have favorites of any of those experiences? They're all such different ensembles, but some of the characters are familiar.
Oh, well, the Phil and Friends thing, I mean, more than any of those other bands or projects or whatever. It could be, very, very different people at different times. And there's a lot of great bands. And we did one gig with Iommi that I was particularly fond of. Because we were both under instructions just to keep playing. We look at each other and go, keep playing, which was fun. But in hindsight, maybe the best of those was the one we did with the Fish Guys at Warfield in San Francisco. That I didn't know. I didn't really know who Fish was. So we just sort of met at rehearsal, Trey and I, and I had a great time playing. But when we actually got on stage, man, it was just kind of supercharged, creatively. And I thought that was a really good one. And I'm told it's well recorded, so you can actually go look that up and go, oh yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that's a lot of great experiences that you've gotten to have. We're very lucky because you're bringing your band here to town. It's going to be several gigs. We're looking forward to it, and maybe we'll come down and if you feel like doing it, we could record a little follow up while you're at the Blue Note, maybe, or have you by the studio or something.
Absolutely, come down, man. It's just I wish I could get over to the islands more often,
Well, we're looking forward to having you here. It's going to be great, Steve.
Aloha, this is Steve Kimock, and don't even think about touching that dial because you're listening to my good friend Dave Lawrence. It's member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, and all things considered. Thank you very much for supporting this nonprofit radio station.
You're the man. Look at that.
And that's what we'll do.
You're the man, Steve. I appreciate it. Giving you a hug, a high five, hoping that you travel safe, and really looking forward to having you in town. And it's going to be lovely. Appreciate you being on ATC with us too, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you very much for the support.
You're welcome. Take care, Steve. Aloha.